All right, so we have gone through a lot. There's more to cover. What I want you all to be thinking about is what are the different types of neighborhoods that can exist, because different neighborhood types belong in different places. And you all are going to be the deciders that say, that's not a good fit for this place. Give me another option, right? And so there are maybe 1 or 2 or 3 places in all of Berrien County where this town center approach could work, where we're talking 3 to 5 stories, right? Not very many places will this work, but there's probably a couple where we could say, yep, that's a good building typology for this place. The one that is going to be much more common is the village center, right? These are the kinds of places where you can have some ground floor retail with some residential above, or you can have townhouses that are attached to each other that are in close proximity to some of the other things, whether it's doctor's offices or coffee shops or restaurants or whatever it is. So think about the difference between this kind of low rise, 2 to 3 stories versus that higher 4 to 6 stories, and where do each of those belong. But then you're going to have lots of in-between places where it's like, we could probably do more than single family homes, but I don't think we need any retail here. What are the building types that go there? There we're talking about smaller cottages, we're talking about duplexes, townhomes, condos. Figuring out how we build more condo forms of ownership is a key to unlocking a lot more affordability. There are a number of challenges from a financing and a legal perspective, but it's something I think many of us want to be working on going forward. And then lastly, these small cottage neighborhoods, right? I didn't include big, large lot, single family subdivisions because we already know how to do that, right? We do that really well and nobody needs an education about it. But thinking about these smaller cottages with shared green spaces or smaller cottages with small individual yards, a lot of people would choose this option if it were available. The question is, where do we want to make it available? And so thinking about, in each of our communities, we probably have these little spots, right? So in this example, there's one house on this block with sort of a big yard area. Then if you look, it disappears over here. Oh, no, here it is. This is that little house. This house is here. Now it's got a couple of townhouses with garages with accessory dwelling units next door. In which neighborhoods do these kinds of things make sense? This is an example of a commercial arterial, right? Think Red Arrow Highway. Do we have any places along Red Arrow where we could, as Adam said, repair the existing place and turn it into something more robust and more vibrant? I already mentioned this stat. National Association of Realtors says half of people want this. We need to start creating more places for this to exist. We also know that retirees are more active than ever. Retirees now, if they retire at 65 or 67, probably have another 15 to 20 years of really active living ahead of them. Creating spaces that allow them to move around the community in means other than just getting in their car. To Andrew's point, we're all going to get in our cars every day, right? It's how we live in America. But we also want to be able to move around in other ways also. So, yeah.
As you had mentioned here being a summer town, this is ignorant of me, but I think about spaces in Florida where the golf cart reigns supreme and how pro-social the street can be. And even just thinking about what kind of community does that mode of transit enable during the summer?
Yeah, exactly. So this is an example, again, from our hometown, just a classic kind of suburban area. There's an old D&W, which is now a family fair up here. There's a little kind of suburban mall. This is a Fresh Time Market. Sneakily tucked in behind the grocery store is this townhouse development, right? This was just green space that the Planning Commission had required as buffer, right? How many people have a zoning ordinance that says, oh, you got to buffer the commercial use from the residential use? This neighborhood down here, this is $350,000 homes and up. A lot of these are in the $400,000 price point. A creative developer said, hey, there's green space here. The city says they want more housing. I can build townhouses here that are going to be $100,000 less than the single family homes in the same neighborhood. The city was smart and said yes, and they got this product, which started at $295,000, $100,000 less than the typical single family home in the same neighborhood. These are still 3-bed, 2-bath houses. There's families, there's retirees, there's singles. We got everybody living there. They're all parked. They've all got 2-car garages underneath. It's a really impactful product. This is a neighborhood in the village of Parchment, or it's the city of Parchment. I made the mistake of calling it a village in Parchment. They corrected me immediately. This is a 4-acre little center. This is the Kalamazoo River right here, believe it or not. We got to save a lot. There's a post office. There's a whole lot of parking. Current taxable value is $600,000. We said, what if we built a little town right there? What if we had a village center in the same place where we already have a bunch of commercial use? What if we allowed for 3 stories with retail on the ground floor and residential above? We could get 105 households on that same 4 acres and create taxable value of $14 million as a result. Now, getting a developer to see this vision and actually execute on it takes work. It takes bringing together the local unit of government who is appropriately zoning and putting some incentives together and finding some patient impact capital that's like, I get the vision and I'm willing to be invested for the long term to make this happen. This is how we do these kinds of things. But they're all within the realm of possibility and they're happening in other places. Anybody familiar with the village of Ada, which is just east of Grand Rapids? They just completely redid their entire downtown. There was like a McDonald's and an old grocery store and something else. They redeveloped 15 acres to create 400 new residential dwelling units, a boutique hotel. Now, given the DeVos family had something to do with that, right? If you don't have a billionaire in town, it's a different financial scenario. But it not only happened, it's working, right? It's creating a whole lot of financial value. So we did all the math here if you want to know. The tax to infrastructure ratio went from this product today is only producing 41% of the revenue necessary to pay for the infrastructure that surrounds it. This scenario would produce 1,500% of the value necessary to pay for the infrastructure. We did something similar in the village or the city of Portage. 1.5 acres. This is a wooded lot in a suburban neighborhood. We can build a 15-unit little cottage court development. These are all single-family owner-occupied houses. We got 17 households. We created taxable value of $2.6 million. This is a church with a strip mall in front of it. I've seen these all over Michigan, right? This kind of pattern. This church is paying no taxable value. They have a parking lot that sits empty 6.5 days a week. Overall taxable value for this whole area is $750,000. You put a new little town center right there. We just increased taxable value to $18.1 million and housed almost 100 people, right? Again, this does not happen by itself. You don't just change the code and wait, right? This requires proactive pushing on our development community and our investor community, but it also requires creating the regulatory environment to allow it to happen, how many people would say this is better? Keep it like it is. Okay, right? You can have nice things, right? And we can say, these are gonna be affordable, right? We're gonna say this is low-income housing tax credit. We're gonna invest to make sure that we get subsidized housing into the mix, but that the neighborhood isn't overwhelmed by low-income housing. We've also got market rate and middle income or attainable, whatever you wanna call it. And we're gonna use our incentive package, we're gonna use regulatory, and we're gonna use impact investors to make this happen. Where are they parking? They're parking in the middle, they're parking on street, and
where are the garages for the cars?
Do you need a garage?
Particularly in
Yeah. These are garages.
what about for the
These are garages. So here's the thing. This doesn't have to be yours, right? So if you want a garage, this unit is yours. If you don't need a garage, you park right here, right? Too many people. What?
What does a road look like grass? That was the problem.
A road looks like
No,
grass?
I said, well, is the road looked like grass at first? That's why we're like.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay.
This took me a minute.
Brian, wouldn't the church require a certain number of parking spaces for the size of the church?
Yep.
And it looks like you eliminated a ton of them.
Yep.
So were there more than they should have had?
Absolutely. Yep. So this is a neighborhood just in the city of Kalamazoo. Their congregation is dwindling, right? They built their parking lot in their church for a congregation of 400. They've now got about 100 people that come on Sunday
Well,
mornings.
they got a potential group of congregants living right around.
Yeah, that's right. They've got built-in worshipers.
Nobody's going to the stores Sunday mornings. No one's going to the stores on Sunday morning. So, right?
Yep.
Parking serves different users at different times.
Yep, that's right.
I think beforehand you didn't have side parking or street parking. No.
That's
so
right.
then you would add that street parking, which would include more.
That's right. And you've got another street here that can all have parking on it. We left these houses intact because we didn't want to freak out the homeowners. But this is more area that if we needed more parking, it's available. So the next thing that we would normally recommend, this is Grand Traverse County, is we map all of the infrastructure and the places where we already have little hamlets that might not be served by infrastructure. And we say, all right, this is where the infrastructure is and where these kinds of properties exist, right? We found all kinds of these properties all over Grand Traverse County. You zoom in closer to Traverse City, these little red areas are the places where the county said, this is the spot. These are the places where we think we can accommodate that kind of village center development. Notice the vast majority of this space isn't changing. We're not doing anything differently. It's just these little red circles and these green circles where they're like, yep, here. Let's do something creative here. So we mapped all of these and then correlated them with the neighborhood type. So purple are the town centers, those 4 to 6 stories. There's like a Best Buy and something else out here and just massive amounts of parking. They're like, yeah, we could have a town center here. The village center is the blue. On corridor, these are like missing middle neighborhoods. And then everything in the buffer, these things, are just smaller single-family cottage style neighborhoods, just allowing those things to exist. So normally, if we had more time, if I hadn't talked so much, we would go through that deeper dive workshop. But oftentimes we use this as an entree into how do we want to plan together for the future, right? And I think that might be a little bit early for this group right now. I think we've sort of brought you together to say, hey, we think we have a housing need that's pretty significant, and there's probably no one community that can tackle it by themselves. Are you interested in collaborating, right? And so the first question for you all is, are you interested in collaborating? Do you want to be part of the solution, part of this bigger regional solution to address housing needs at all price points, right? Market rate, middle income, low income, we need all of it in a lot of places. And so I think the next step for you all is to have those conversations back at home with your local leaders and decision makers, but also to stay closely connected with Marla and Andrew and the team at Cornerstone Alliance to really indicate, like, do you want to step into this space collaboratively with the larger group? And then I think Marla is going to talk, do you want to talk a little bit about next steps, or do we want to be like, thanks for coming?
I will say a little bit about next steps. So I think I stated up front that we do have the housing study in hand. We received it late December. This was a precursor to the reveal of all of those results. So it's a 480-page document. Obviously, it's very data heavy. So what we're going to do is digest it into an executive summary. We'll first share that with the stakeholders who supported the study financially so that they get first view of it. And then we're going to bring in Patrick Bowen into our community. He is the founder of Bowen National Research, and he will present those results to the entire community. So we think that'll be a pretty large event, maybe 200 to 300 people we would expect to have at that event. And just as an outcome of this and what we're experiencing here, I feel like we're still noodling on discussion and we have really great ideas, and I think everybody's enjoying Flywheel being here. I want to bring Ryan back for another session. So what we're going to do is send out a survey to everyone, and we'll have some options for what types of sessions that, I know you had some options that you had presented to me originally, so we'll see what the group wants to do. Please go back and tell your peers in your municipalities in particular, planning commission, et cetera. We would love to get a bigger group or have multiple days where we can do sessions like this of this size. I think it's really important that we all get on the same page and keep diving into this a little bit more so that we are working collaboratively because it's so important for us to do that.
Yeah. Yes.
Presentation and this information be typically sent to those that attend?
Yeah, I'll make PDFs available to Marla, and we'll make sure those get distributed.
Sorry, Ryan,
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna logistically. There is a happy hour afterwards if people want to hang around.
There is a happy hour after this. We're having some appetizers delivered in this room. Mike, do we order from the bar?
Yeah.
If you want? Okay, so if you want to drink, order from the bar. But we'll have this room to mingle. Okay, perfect. Yes.
Yep.
I was just gonna add to the follow-up stuff, we'll get the deck out. We, would love to engage with Ryan again and the session with Patrick Bowen. We have some other stuff planned throughout the year with things like incentives and helping communities learn how to leverage TIF and other tools, tax abatements. So just stay in touch and please share this stuff. And we're so grateful that everyone came today.
This is the first session for what we branded as kind of Cornerstone Academy. So we'll have other academy events where it's a learning session through our staff, or we bring in experts like Ryan to the table. So we'll build in that programming throughout the year.
Did you have one more question?
Yeah, but in general, in some of the communities that you've done, what has been some creative ways that you saw to keep material costs down as you build those communities?
Yeah. Great question. So if you didn't hear, generally he's asking, how do you bring construction costs down? The first is acknowledging what happens in the building code when you build more than 2 units at a time, right? So whenever you go from 2 units to 3 units in a building, you change construction codes. You go from residential to commercial, and that adds 10 to 15% to your cost by doing that. You got to build 12 units in order to make up for that difference, generally speaking. So in some instances, building smaller homes or duplexes is the most efficient thing that you can do. But once you are allowing for multifamily, one of the things that we run into is we've got communities that are allowing for missing middle, and they're like, why aren't we getting more fourplexes, right? We want fourplexes everywhere. It's an expensive building type because of the building code requirement, but there's some legislative changes that are being proposed right now. I think those bills will get introduced in the next 2 weeks that would allow you to build 4 or 6 units under the residential code, and that will be a game changer, right? Then all those communities that allowed for 4 units on a lot to get built, you're gonna start seeing those kinds of buildings get built, and those will be the most efficient kinds of buildings to build in our communities.
We can figure out which legislative bill that's under and disseminate that to the group so our constituents support it.
Yes.
Makes a lot of sense.
All right, we'll make sure we're communicating that with Marla and Andrew so you guys get that out. All right, well, thank you all for your patience. I really appreciate you. You've been a great audience.